5 spine-chilling Catskills Mountain Tales. Discover the sinister secrets that haunt the wilderness. The Jacobs family thought they were making the right decision. New Hope, with its rolling hills and evergreen forests, promised peace. But as night fell, that peace crumbled like the leaves beneath their feet. Eerie cries echoed through the woods. Shadows danced just out of sight, and an unsettling energy hung in the air. What secrets did these woods hold? Emma, their 10-year-old with an insatiable curiosity, tried to ignore her parents' growing worries. Mike was buried in his new job, while Sarah sketched, her hand trembling ever so slightly. They brushed off Emma's frantic questions, dismissing her pleas for attention. While they fought their battles, Emma wandered into the woods. She felt those shadows watching, felt their breath on her neck. "Oh, just imagination," they said, but Emma knew better. She saw the twisted forms of her mother's beloved storybook animals lurking in the dusk. The deer with hollow eyes, the foxes that seemed to leer. Each night, they became more pronounced, almost as if they were inviting her to join them in the dark. But as the nights wore on, something shifted in the air. Local children whispered of those who vanished into the forests, shadows likely still roaming among the trees. An old neighbor warned of tragedies, stirring Emma's mind into a whirlwind of fear and doubt. But Mike and Sarah remained in their own worlds, oblivious to the dark tightening its grip around them all. As the storm settled over the Catskills, it felt as if the very forest had come alive. Winds howled through the branches like tortured souls. A power outage plunged their home into darkness. Emma's heart raced. She heard it, a child's mournful cry from deep within the woods. It chilled her to the bone, echoing through the hollow spaces of her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air grew thick as the woods came alive with whispers. Emma felt those shadows, closer now. Darkness wrapped around her like a shroud. She staggered backward. Fear clawed at her chest. She saw a figure resembling the children from her visions. Panic surged. The reality of their situation crashed down around them. "Mom! Dad!" Emma cried, her voice trembling. As her parents turned, hope faded, darkness creeping into their hearts. Shadows moved at the forest's edge, swirling, hungry. Were they chasing freedom, or were they drawn to a fate far worse? With every heartbeat, the ominous whispers grew louder, and the gentle rustle of the leaves transformed into a sinister melody. Just as the weight of doom settled in, those malicious figures took shape, pressing against the light, reaching out for warmth, for life. Would the Jacobs unearth the truths hidden deep in the woods before it consumed them all? The line between salvation and despair blurred as the shadows closed in, threatening everything. The fight for survival began, but would they unravel the curse that lurked just beyond the trees before it was too late? The cries echoed again, sharp and haunting, slicing through the stillness of the night. Emma's heart raced, pounding like a wild drum in her chest. She could see them now, faces contorted in desperation, little bodies twisted in the half-light. Children. But not just any children, those were the ones told of in whispered warnings, the ones who vanished among the trees. "Mom! Dad!" She screamed again, this time with urgency, her voice dripping with fear. Mike blinked, shock slapping him awake from his distraction. Sarah dropped her sketchpad, the pencil rolling away, forgotten. The shadows seemed to ripple, moving closer, their presence thickening, palpable. The trees groaned as the wind picked up, a cacophony of suffering surrounding them. Each gust felt like icy fingers probing at their skin, pulling them toward the heart of the forest's dark secret. "Emma," Mike willed, his voice trembling, stay close. But the shadows had already captured her focus, drawing her in like the flicker of a flame to a moth. Sue knew what she had seen, and the morbid curiosity lingered, weaving its way through her. "What do you want?" she whispered, her breath hitching. The childlike figures beckoned, their hollow eyes tearing at her soul. They twisted their fingers, beckoning her in. Each tiny hand, so innocent yet so corrupted, seemed to whisper promises of friendship she desperately sought. "Emma." Sarah's voice broke through the spell. Her mother's eyes were wide, filled with fear, but they locked onto Emma with an almost frantic urgency. "Don't go." She yanked Emma back, but the shadows surged, hungry for their warmth, ready to envelop them all. "Get inside. Now!" Mike yelled, casting frantic glances at the edges of the darkness expecting something to leap from the woods. What were these spirits of lost children? Why did they haunt that place? The family darted toward the house, legs pumping, hearts racing. They burst through the door, slamming it shut just as a horde of whispers swirled around them. It felt as if the entire forest had awakened, boiling with frustration. But as they huddled together in the faint glow of the flashlight, the air grew thick with dread. The whispers, once distant, now rang clear against the wooden walls. Every sound reverberated through their bones, weaving through their very essence. "Let us in, let us out," a chorus of voices entwined, weaving a sinister symphony. "Close the windows," Sarah shouted, stumbling backward, her eyes searching for reassurance, but finding none. Outside, the shadows writhed with life, gnashing teeth and fingers clawing through the cracked wood and rusted hinges. The air froze. "Even a candle light cannot keep us out," the voice of a child sang, twisting the familiar melody into something horrific. Each heartbeat echoed, the noise drowning out the sinister tune, chaos bursting inside four walls that once felt like salvation. Sarah locked the door, but could lock stop the encroaching doom? Was there a way they could escape? An unraveling mystery awaited them, hidden somewhere in the darkness just outside, far more than just lost children wandering the trees. With every horror-stricken moment passing, they needed to confront that sinister truth, or it would seize them completely. Emma shivered as she stared into her mother's eyes. "Do you think they're real?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. As shadows flickered at the windows, and the whispers crescendoed, an idea slipped into Emma's mind. "What if I went out there?" Her mother's breath caught, and Mike's eyes widened with dread. The real horror was yet to come, rising from the abyss they dared not explore. What lay beyond the safety of the doors? Would they face the darkness head-on, or would they spiral into the depths of despair, lost like those who came before them? The scratching at the windows grew more frantic, a manic rhythm that matched the racing pulse in Mike's ears. He turned, muscles taut with instinct. "We need to find a way out of here." His voice cut through the momentum of chaos, but the uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Sarah gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "Where do we go? What's out there?" Emma's eyes darted toward the door, a tangible pull urging her closer. "I'm not scared," she said, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her bravado. "Emma, don't even think about it." Mike snapped, panic flickering through his features. "Those things out there, they're not just lost kids. They want something." Emma's gaze broke from her father, focusing on the shadows, now twisted and contorted beyond anything that could be described as childlike. A new sound infiltrated the whispers. It was soft, as if someone was sobbing. "Let us play," a voice crumbled through the darkness, icier than the evening breeze, and the children at the edges of their vision twisted into grotesque shapes, pulling themselves closer into the dim glow of the flashlight. "What do you want?" Sarah shouted, her voice strained. The tremor reflected in her eyes. She was battling both desperation and terror. "Want to play?" the voice rasped again, sounding like a lullaby gone wrong. At that moment, Emma could feel the weight of yearning flooding through her. "Play?" The idea danced tantalizingly, teasing at her sense of belonging. "No. They want to trick you," Mike yelled, rushing forward to shield Emma. Outside, the wind howled an angry protest, sending leaves tumbling what felt like haphazardly against the walls, creating an illusion of a beating heart. They were not alone. Each clap of thunder was as if the forest itself was gasping for breath, and every flash of lightning illuminated the faces of the restless spirits. "Shut up!" Sarah screamed, but the voices only swelled louder, filling the room with despair. A sudden crash sounded from the back door. The lock splintered, flung into the darkness behind them. The family turned in terror, eyes wide, breath catching as the door lurched open, revealing an endless, shadowy abyss. And then they saw him, a boy, drenched in silence, with hollow eyes that reflected only misery. "Please help us," he moaned, extending a bony hand toward them. The air turned thick and suffocating, and for a fleeting moment, empathy crackled within the room. "Do not listen. Don't trust him," Mike roared, backing toward Sarah and Emma, desperation curling in his chest. But Emma's heart raced towards the boy. His presence was magnetic. "What if they need help?" she whispered. The warmth in her thoughts drowned out every warning echoing in her mind. As if sensing her uncertainty, the whispers crescendoed into a choir of anguish. Join us, no. We can't," Sarah began, but it was too late. Emma stepped forward, compelled beyond her will. "What happens if we help?" she called out, voice trembling under the weight of potential. The boy's lips curled into an impossibly wide grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth beneath that facade of innocence. The shadows pressed around Emma, swirling like a storm. The sensation intensified. She felt pulled into the darkness, yearning mingling with dread. "Emma! Come back!" Mike reached out, terror igniting his voice. The boy laughed, but it echoed wrong, a jarring contrast to the innocence he wore. "Just a little taste of what awaits." A crackle of lightning illuminated the boy's face fully, revealing his true form twisted, a patchwork of lost souls trying to forge a new existence among the living. At that moment, confirmation slammed into Emma, a terrifying truth: they were not simply here to play, they were beckoning for new souls to join their torment. "Run!" Mike screamed, but Emma remained frozen, her entire being teetering on the edge of a decision. The boy's grin widened, a grotesque promise shimmering in the air between innocence and despair. "Will you play with us?" Emma's breath hitched as all around them the shadows writhed with expectation, the house tinged with darkness. Around them. What were they willing to sacrifice for escape? What if she stepped through that door? The echoes of the forest awaited, their hunger palpable. Would they find out who these spirits really were, or would they be lost to them forever? As the shadows danced hungrily around Emma, the weight of the boy's gaze bore down on her. Each second stretched like an elastic band, ready to snap. The words, the plea, hung heavy in the air, intoxicating like the sweet smell of rotting flowers. She felt a pull, a soft whisper of assurance, but it was laced with an ominous undertone that prickled her skin. "Emma, please. Come back." Mike's voice was a mixture of desperation and authority, but it felt so far away, as if echoing from the depths of a dark well. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the cracked door, sweeping through the room with an icy ferocity. It pushed Emma backward just as her heart raced towards the boy in the shadows. She stumbled, falling against the table. The beams of the flashlight quivered, casting frantic patterns on the grim walls that looked as if they were alive, almost breathing. The boy's form seemed to fold in on itself, shadows coiling and uncoiling like snakes. "We can play forever," he cooed, his voice dripping with sweetness that turned sour. It twisted something deep inside Emma, a longing she never knew existed, clawing at her sanity. "Don't listen!" Sarah shouted again, moving closer to Emma in a bid to pull her away. But the more Sarah fought, the more it felt as if the shadows grew nightmarishly thick, binding Emma to her place. Emma's wide eyes darted between her family and the boy. The lure of joining them, of escaping all the pain in the outside world, filled her with confusion. Who were they really? What was waiting out in that howling wind? Join us. The whispers grew louder, frantic and urgent, blending with the rush of the wind, morphing into an irresistible siren-esque call. The boy's mouth stretched into that gruesome smile again, and his voice dropped to a whisper meant for Emma's ears alone. You're special. You belong with us. Fear surged through Emma, piercing the fog of longing. She had to resist. They weren't children wanting to play, they were spirits trapped in a cycle of torment, waiting to ensnare another soul. Yet, the more she fought, the clearer the sadness in the boy's hollow eyes became, a reflection of tragedy, a warped mirror of her own fate if she slipped away from her family. Stop it. Mike's voice pierced her thoughts like a knife, filled with both rage and sorrow. He stepped forward, shielding Emma completely and feeling the darkness pushing against him like a tangible force. You don't belong here. None of you do. The shadows recoiled as if stung, and for a brief moment, the boy's smile faltered. He blinked, and in that instant, Emma caught a glimpse beyond the facade, tiny faces flickering around him, eyes wide with despair, begging to escape as he tried to pull her closer. Help! Help us! They all cried in unison, fingers stretching out like branches grasping for light, becoming gnarled, rigid with fear. Run! Now! Mike screamed again, seizing Emma's arm and yanking her back. They stumbled toward the door, but the shadows twisted together, forming barriers like thick fog, blocking their exit. In a fit of panic, Sarah drew a deep breath, her whole body trembling. We need to. She stopped abruptly, eyes widening as a realization crossed her face. The others were shifting, their whispering voices turning into an unending wail, growing louder and more menacing. Leave us! Stay! The boy screamed. His form seemed to morph, twisting into a monstrous shape filled with resentment, hunger, and a sense of madness that clawed at the edges of sanity, and when the walls began to weep, dripping something black and viscous that pooled around their feet, pulling at them like a malevolent tide. Hold tight! Mike shouted, clutching Emma and Sarah. But before they could push through that door, the laughter echoed again, deep and resonant, curling around their minds like smoke. With the darkness closing in, they faced an impossible choice: fight through a world of despair or surrender to whatever lay beyond the threshold. Outside, more figures materialized in the trees, watching, waiting. What were they willing to sacrifice for their escape? A figure stepped into the light, eyes glistening with understanding, whispering quiet truths that could unravel everything. Could they truly make it out, or were they destined to join the cries echoing in the creeping shadows? As the tumult swirled, they scarcely understood what truly awaited them on the other side. They had to decide before the darkness consumed them whole. The air grew thick with dread, wrapping around them like wet wool. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, each beat muffled by the rising pitch of the wails around them. Shadows writhed, eager to devour. She could see them stretching toward her, gnarled hands reaching from every corner, wanting her, claiming her. Mike! She cried, struggling against his grip, her voice high with fear. He barely held on, his fingers a firm lifeline as the darkness twisted around them, hungry for their warmth. Stay with me. He pleaded, his breaths coming in labored gasps. The shadows were relentless, pushing back against his strength. We need to keep moving. Sarah's eyes were wide with terror. But there are too many of them. How do we break through? Her voice trembled, caught between hope and despair, desperate for a way out. The boy no, the monster grinned wider, his mirthless laughter echoing through the entangled shadows. Why fight? He taunted, his primal voice coiling around them. You could be free. Just let go. Emma shook her head fiercely, panic flooding her veins, drowning out the whispers pressing against her mind. She felt the boy's pull like a chain anchoring her down. We're not leaving. She shouted, her eyes darting between the faces in the darkness, searching for clarity amidst the chaos. For a moment, the back door of the room creaked ominously, the wind outside howling louder, as if urging them on. The air was alive, crackling with anxious energy, and in that moment, Emma caught sight of the faces again. Hollow-eyed and weeping, they pleaded silently as their cries mixed into a cacophony of despair that wrapped around them like smoke. "Help us!" they begged, and Emma bit her lip, fighting the tears that rose at the weight of their silent communications. How many souls had been lost? How many more would join them if she acted too slowly? Think. Mike's eyes were urgent, darting around the room for something, anything to help. He tugged at Emma, urging her back toward the door, but the walls had twisted, and with every step he took, the exit seemed to fall further away. "We have to face the darkness together." But just as he turned back towards the shadows, the boy lunged forward, sending a tidal wave of dark energy crashing over the three of them. Darkness filled Emma's lungs, a foul breath that tasted bitter and sharp. She gasped, chest heaving. A thick mist rose, swirling, suffocating. "Get out!" Sarah grunted, as she grabbed Emma's arm, pulling them toward the door. But the shadows swirled and lashed out, catching her ankle and pulling her down into the darkened floor. "Let me go!" she screamed, despair echoing in her voice. Emma felt horror bloom inside her chest as she turned to see her sister's terrified face vanishing into the void. "No! No! Sarah!" Emma screamed, struggling desperately against Mike's hold. She felt the coldness of the shadows creeping toward her, wrapping tightly around her legs, dragging her down. "Hold on!" Mike shouted, his eyes wide with frantic determination. He reached toward Sarah, and in that split second, Emma saw the determination flicker in his eyes, a promise to face the night together, whatever it took. But then, in the corner of her eye, she saw the boy looking at her, and something shifted behind him. A figure, dark and enormous, stepped forth, towering over all others. The wails intensified, a chorus of fear and resentment spiraling around them. "Choose!" the boy shrieked, as the enormous figure reached out, fingers like gnarled branches poised above them. "You can stay or you can run." The walls trembled, and in that moment, the weight of the choice pressed down like a stone. Would they fight for their escape, or yield to the darkness trying to swallow them whole? Emma trembled, heart racing, knowing that whatever decision they made would seal their fate. And in a heartbeat, a horrifying realization struck her. The courage to break free might come at a cost more precious than they could ever imagine. Would she dare to sacrifice everything she loved to chase freedom? As the shadows shrieked, time felt. Suspended staring at the precipice of doom or escape, Emma gritted her teeth against the fear. But even as she steeled herself for the fight, a new dread coiled in her stomach. What if the real evil was not the darkness, but their own mismatched hearts? The shadows stirred in anticipation. Something was waiting to be unleashed. Would they be able to overcome, or would they too become whispers caught in the wind? The ground vibrated with a low hum, the very essence of the darkness around them pulsating, like a heartbeat ready to explode. Emma swallowed hard, feeling the shadows creep up her legs like a cold fog. "Mike, we can't let it, we can't shut up," he barked, his face drawn tight with fear. "I can't think with you yelling. We need a plan." The boy's laughter rang through the thick air, slick with malice, as he stepped closer. "It's simple, really. Just let one go. It's a small price for your own life." His eyes glittered with twisted joy. Behind him, the giant figure loomed, a mass of shadow with no real shape. Its mere presence robbed Emma of air, and with every breath, dread clawed deeper into her mind. The faces of the lost souls echoed through her thoughts. "No!" she shouted, desperation slicing through the haze. "We won't abandon Sarah." But the ground shook again, this time more violently, as the boy leaned in closer. "You'll find the choice isn't yours to make, Emma. It never was." He reached out, fingers curling as if to envelop her in darkness, and the world around her faded. Emma's heart raced. She had to push back, had to fight for her sister. But with each beat, she felt the shadows siphoning away her strength. "Mike!" Emma yelled, panic rising in her throat. We have to. He was staring, transfixed, caught somewhere between despair and resolve. If we stay, we lose everything. He shouted back, almost pleading. Yes. I want to fight. But as she clung to that notion, something flickered in her chest, a flicker of fear that wasn't her own. Sarah was afraid too. Something gripped Emma's heart like a vice. The shadows whispered, twisting her thoughts, nudging doubts. What if you leave her? What if this is a trap? No. She screamed into the void, more to herself than to the presence surrounding them. We will save her. With a surge of adrenaline, Emma wrenched free of Mike's grip, lunging toward where her sister had disappeared. The shadows shrieked, angry and fearful, as she waded deeper into their suffocating grip. A visceral cold sparked along her skin, biting and stinging. Come on. Come on. Emma pleaded, her voice breaking, her eyes scanning for any sign of Sarah's pale face. There was a shift in the darkness, a hint of movement. It felt wrong, shifted in a way that made her skin crawl. Suddenly, tendrils of darkness shot out at her, wrapping around her wrists and ankles. Help us. A voice echoed Sarah's voice, a weak whisper carried by the winds of desperation. Ensnared, Emma felt the icy grip tightening as she fought against it. Emma! Mike yelled, struggling against the shadows that hesitated at his touch. But in that moment of hesitation, the boy laughed again, and the shapeless figures hovered nearer, always closer to them. Choose, or be consumed. The boy's voice snaked around her, wrapping its tendrils around her mind too. Then Emma saw a flicker of light where the shadows parted. For a brief second, hope ignited. I can reach her. But just as her fingers outstretched toward that glimmer, darkness surged anew, pulling tighter, whispering threats in her ear. Was it worth it? Would finding Sarah mean losing her life? In the chaos, while shadows screeched louder, a scream broke through the noise, sharp, desperate. It was Sarah, and there was no mistaking the terror. Emma's heart shattered. They were losing her. Let go of her. Mike bellowed, and the ground shook again. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, feeding off the fear. Emma felt the weight of their desperate choice press down on them. She could give in or rip through the darkness with everything she had, but she knew it came with a cost. Was she ready to bear that? As her heart pounded in her ears, she steeled herself. We're coming for you, Sarah. The shadows twisted, a deep growl resonating. But what darkness awaited them beyond, and what would it take to save her sister? As uncertainty gripped Emma, the figure of the boy stepped closer, his grin wide, revealing something sharper lurking beneath the surface. Their time was running out. Could they emerge whole, or was this the beginning of their end? The shadows thickened, crawling closer, tightening their grip. Emma's breath came in quick, shallow gasps. Panic washed over her, a tidal wave of fear nearly drowning her spirit. The sensation of cold fingers, tentacles coiling tighter around her limbs ignited a ferocity within her. Mike! She screamed, heart racing, adrenaline spiking. We have to fight back. He looked lost, like a deer caught in headlights. How? It's too strong. But in his eyes, she saw a flicker of resolve, igniting a desperate plan. With a guttural scream, Emma summoned every ounce of strength, pulling against the icy tendrils. We can't give up. We have to save her. As if that very thought made the darkness roar in anger, it surged forward, the air crackling with impending violence. The boy's laughter echoed, chilling her blood. Such spirit. But you will all be consumed. It's only a matter of time. With the shadows clawing at her heart, Emma's mind raced. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the dread back, thinking of Sarah. They didn't have time to waste. No. Sarah needs us. She shouted, focusing on the flickering light. There was a chance, a small one, but enough for hope. We can break through. Together. Mike's hands trembled but he nodded, eyes darting to the boy. On 3. They counted together, hearts beating like war drums. The boy hissed, shadows swirling around him, circling like angry serpents. 1, 2, 3. On the count, they both lunged forward, their bodies colliding into the darkness. Emma felt the chains of shadowed despair shatter around her as she pushed against it with every ounce of will. The ground beneath them trembled, convulsing as if it were alive. For a breathless moment, the shadows hesitated, retreating slightly, the light pulsed like a heartbeat, brighter, echoing her resolve. Go! Mike shouted. But before they could take another step, the darkness writhed violently, bolts of shadowed energy striking at them like lightning. Emma cried out, everything burning in a bright flash of agony, then silence. She blinked and the world shifted. Instead of being encased in shadows, she was standing in a narrow corridor, dust motes dancing in a shaft of light. Confusion prickled at her skin. Had they escaped? Or was it another trap? No, she murmured, looking around. The walls were covered in a damp, dark moss, and the air was thick, heavy with a suffocating silence. The light flickered, revealing broken furniture scattered around her. The scent of decay lingered, twisting her stomach. Mike? She croaked, panic clawing at her voice. Where was he? The stillness around her felt suddenly suffocating, an echo of the darkness she had just faced. With hesitance, she took a step forward, digging her nails into her palms, grounding herself. She had to find her brother. She had to find Sarah. But the thought of losing either made her heart clench. As she moved, the shadows whispered again, a cacophony of lost voices wrapping around her, consuming her thoughts. Help us, Sarah's voice fought to surface amidst the mess of haunting moans. Emma pressed onward, heart hammering in her chest, then, from behind, she heard a creaking sound, dragging across the floor. Emma spun around, fear spiking, and that uncanny laugh rang out once more. The boy emerged, a silhouette framed in the crumbling doorway, eyes glimmering with sinister glee. Welcome to the lair, he cooed, each word laced with a mocking softness. You've only just begun to understand the games that await you. Was this truly the end of hope, or the beginning of something far worse? Emma steadied herself, the shadows creeping toward her, as the weight of Griffith's gaze bore down like a predator. Let us play, he sneered, stepping closer with a predatory grace. With terror electrifying her body, Emma whispered, I want to let you take us. Would that be enough to stand against the encroaching darkness, or was this the moment they would all be consumed? As she prepared to face him, Emma felt the grip of shadows tightening again, wrestling for her spirit. But this time, she refused to be swallowed whole. Fear surged through her veins, igniting a fire within. It was time to confront her deepest nightmare or die trying. Emma felt the tension coil tightly in her chest as Griffith stepped forward, shadows swirling around him like a living cloak. She had to think, had to act. The uncertainty wrapped around her like chains. Get away from us! She shouted, her voice trembling but loud. The boy's laughter echoed again, a sound that dug deep into her bones. You think you can escape? This is my realm, and you're just threads in my tapestry of terror. With each word, the shadows writhed, reacting to his taunts, flaring as if they craved her fear. She searched her surroundings, heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The walls felt alive, pulsing with hidden threats. No good could come from standing still. She had to find Mike. Ignoring the chill creeping up her spine, she dashed past Griffith. As she ran, the shadows reached for her, icy fingers grazing her skin. Don't run, Emma. Griffith's voice slithered through the air. Running only makes the game more interesting. Her pulse quickened, but adrenaline surged. She didn't have time for his mind games. The corridor twisted with every footfall, leading her into what felt like a labyrinth. Doors lined the walls, some slightly ajar, others sealed shut. Every whisper of the shadows taunted her, promising horror behind every threshold. Emma pushed through one door, gasping at what unfolded before her. The room was a gallery of horrors. Old photographs lined the walls, faces twisted in anguish and fear, eyes pleading for release. But what chilled her most were the echoes, a cacophony of cries, and amidst them, she recognized Sarah's voice. "Help! Emma!" Shoving against the memories clawing at her, she fought to remain focused. "Sarah?" she cried, desperation leaking into her tone. Silence followed her shout, thick and heavy. The portraits seemed to leer at her, shadows creeping closer as their faces shifted into expressions of despair. "How quaint," Griffith's voice sliced through the stillness. "But those cries mean nothing to you. They're just shadows of the past." Emma wanted to scream, to lash out at him. Instead, a wave of determination washed over her. "You're lying," she yelled, anger blazing through her fear. "I'll find her. I'll save them all." She turned to leave, determined to ignore the haunting faces. Yet Griffith blocked her path, a twisted grin painted on his lips, shadows dancing around him like a lover. "Oh, but you'll need to play the game first," he said, tilting his head mockingly. "Tell me, Emma, do you want to know why you're really here?" "No," Emma shouted, but her voice cracked. Unease coiled in her stomach, threatening to break the fragile resolve building inside her. She rushed to the next door, pushing it open. If she could find Mike, together they could fight this. The room held an eerie calm. Dust particles floated in the stagnant air, and an old chandelier hung precariously above. No torture or horror here, just muffled whispers drifting through the stale air. She felt drawn toward the far wall, where a tall mirror stood, its surface revealing not just her face but something darker lurking behind her, reflected in the glass. "Oh, look! You're already beginning to lose yourself," Griffith said, his voice dripping with malicious glee. Emma's heart raced. Was that a trick of the light? She stepped closer to the mirror, dread drenching her. Ghostly fingers pressed against the glass from inside, as if beckoning for freedom. "Time to make a choice, Emma," Griffith's breath sent chills down her neck. "Will you save yourself, or find your brother and Sarah first? But know this, one of you will not leave this place." Ice gripped her spine, dread constricting her throat. Was this real? Was he lying? In that moment, she felt the weight of the faces surrounding her. Her decision felt like a heavy stone. Could she save 2 lives, her brother and her friend? "Choose wisely," he whispered, and she felt the shadows breathe behind her, waiting. Emma swallowed hard, heart pounding in her ears. She needed strength. She needed to trust Mike. But in this twisted game, how much would it cost her? And would she find them before the darkness took everything she loved? As she turned to the door, she heard the whispers crescendo, a deafening chorus of lost souls. Time was running out. But what would she choose when faced with the mirror of her own soul? With shaking hands, she pushed the door open wider, ready to plunge deeper into the shadows. Beyond the door lay another corridor, wider than the last, its walls lined with old, rotting wood. The air was thick with a musty scent, heavy like a funeral shroud. Emma felt a wrongness here, an unnatural heaviness that pulled at her intuitively. She hesitated, glancing back at the mirror, now dimmed, shrouded from view. The whispers of the lost souls faded to an unsettling silence. She had to keep moving. "Mike, Sarah," she whispered, voice shaky. Their names lingered like a prayer, her only guiding hope. She stepped forward, and the floor creaked ominously beneath her. Shadows danced along the walls as if alive, reaching out with uncertain fingers. Every step felt like an echo in a forgotten tomb, the silence thick and suffocating. Where was Mike? Where was Sarah? Suddenly, laughter erupted, high-pitched and manic, ricocheting off the walls. It was Griffith, a sound of pure malevolence that clawed at her sanity. The shrillness rang in her ears, taunting her as it bounced between the walls, multiplying like a swarm of flies. "Can't find your friends, Emma?" His voice dripped with mockery. "Maybe they're nearer than you think." She flinched, the echo chilling her bones. "Shut up!" she shouted back, voice trembling but defiantly loud. "Ah, but darling, this isn't about me. You are the star of this show," he sang, his mockery wrapping around her like a noose, suffocating her will. Determined to drown him out, she pressed on, scanning the dark corridor. It forked into 3 paths, a choice she didn't want to make. Each pathway was shrouded in darkness, the kind that felt tangible, rising like smoke from a dying fire. "Which one, Emma?" Griffith purred. "Choose poorly, and your little family could join the gallery behind you forever." The thought made her heart race. She had to remember why she was here. Think. Focus. She whispered to herself, wrestling the intertwining fear and anger. Then, from deep in the corridor to the left, she heard it, a soft, shaky whisper. "Help me, please, help me." Sarah's voice, barely discernible but unmistakable. Emma rushed down that corridor, chasing the sound like a desperate lifeline. The walls narrowed as she advanced, shadows growing thicker, pressing against the skin of her arms and forcing her to gasps of air. "Emma." Sarah's voice grew louder but sounded distant, as if floating away from her grasp. "Please. Help me, I'm scared." "Hold on, I'm coming," Emma yelled, urgency mounting. But as she turned a corner, her heart dropped. The corridor opened into a room filled with flickering candles. Shadows danced grotesquely on the walls, distorting her surroundings. In the center, on an altar fashioned from gnarled wood, lay a lifeless figure swathed in darkness. And beside it, a mirror just like the one from before, but cracked, the edges feathered with an eerie glow. No, this can't be." A wave of nausea crashed over her. How could it be? Was it Sarah? Her heart raced, cascading memories flooding in like a storm. Suddenly, Griffith appeared behind her, the shadows swelled around him. "So sad, isn't it? A mirror reflecting your deepest fears. What you don't realize is that one of those figures is your beloved brother, and the other, your friend. But only one will make it out." Stunned, Emma's breath caught. "No. You're lying." "Am I?" The shadows writhed eagerly around him. "Time is running out. Choose. Now." Her mind spun. Was Mike alive? Could she even tell? Emma stepped closer to the altar, her heart pounding in sync with the ticking countdown echoing in her brain. She could feel the weight of their souls pressing against her, begging for her decision. "Choose, Emma." Griffith hissed, his darkened form suddenly looming closer. With trembling hands and a racing heart, she reached out for the mirror, knowing that whichever path she chose would forever change her fate and seal the destinies of those she loved most. And then she heard it again, Sarah's whisper, soft yet piercing. "Help me, Emma." Where would she lead her heart? To save one and lose the other? The choice was about to shatter everything. The whispers from the shadows swirled around Emma, amplifying every fear that clawed at her mind. She closed her eyes for just a moment, searching deep within herself for an answer. "Sarah. Mike." She screamed into the void, but the walls simply bounced back her voice, taunting her. She felt the darkness creep closer, heavy and suffocating, pulling her down into despair. "Choose, Emma." Griffith's voice sliced through the tension, sending chills down her spine. The altar loomed before her, a twisted interpretation of salvation and doom. Each second became an eternity, forcing her to confront the harsh reality before her. Two figures rested on the altar, the shadows draping over them like funeral shrouds. One was unmistakably Sarah, her features twisted by fear, the contours of her face soaked in the gloom. The other, was it Mike? She shot forward, heart racing, reaching for the mirror's cracked surface. "No. Make your choice." Griffith taunted, his grin widening with delight. One will awaken, the other will slip into the darkness forever. Your heart can only save one. Emma's heart thundered in her chest. Both of them. They had to live. No. I want to choose. She screamed defiantly, feeling the weight of their souls descend upon her. Suddenly, a flicker of clarity broke through the chaos. I want to give in to your game. She shouted, repulsed by the boy's insidious joy. Emma turned and faced both figures with fierce resolve, determination blazing in her eyes like fire. She wouldn't play his twisted game. Griffith's laughter echoed, reverberating against the walls. You'll regret that, you know. Embrace the darkness or face the true cost of denial. The choice is yours alone. In a flash, an idea sparked in her mind. She could save them both. Perhaps the shadows had misled her all along. What if she didn't have to choose at all? Emma lunged toward the altar, gripping the edges, determination melding with desperation. You don't own us. She cried, pulling the warmth of her family's memories into her heart, the laughter, the love, the strength they had shared. I choose hope. I choose to fight for you both. A roar of fury erupted from Griffith. The shadows recoiled as Emma's statement resonated through the chamber, shaking its very foundation. The darkness surrounding her shimmered, feeding off her rage and sorrow, dangerously unstable. Bring them back. Emma yelled, her voice echoing into the night, fueled by pure love. The altar responded, glowing with an ethereal light. She reached toward the mirror, focusing her energy into her outstretched hand. Come to me. Sarah. Mike. In that moment of unity, the air thickened, the crackling energy pulsing around her. Suddenly, both figures began to shimmer. It was working. The heaviness of the shadows started to break, fragments of light shooting through. With a burst of determination, she felt their hands entwined with hers, their warmth flooding back into existence. Even from the brink of despair, Griffith screeched in frustration, but Emma stood firm, gripping tightly. You want to take them. The power of love surged through her, infusing every fiber of her being. Shadows lashed out, attempting to pull her back, but with every heartbeat, she fought harder. Together. Emma cried out, the three of them each holding on to one another, hearts synchronized in purpose. With a deafening roar, the shadows began to unravel like threads pulled from a tapestry, shrieking as the shadows lost their hold on them. The darkness seemed to pull back, agonizingly searching for the light that diminished. With an explosive surge of energy, the darkness erupted. In a blinding flash of radiant light, Emma, Sarah, and Mike flung free from the abyss, landing hard but alive on the ground outside their home, a warmth settling around them, sunlight slanting through the trees. The shadowy realm had receded, its malevolent grasp losing power as they emerged victorious from the darkness. What just happened? Mike gasped, eyes wide as he looked around. Sarah blinked furiously, shaking off the remnants of shadows clinging to her. We survived. Emma panted, relief flooding her as she embraced them both tightly, tears streaming down her face. It was all gone, the pressure, the darkness. The forest stood still, now bathed in the golden light of a new day, the sinister energy dissipated like morning fog. Griffith's figure flickered in the distance, shrouded in shadows, defeated but seething with rage. They could feel the weight of his anger but knew he was just a remnant, a whisper of their haunting past. I'll find you again. He shrieked, but the wind swallowed his words. We're free. Mike shouted, and with that exclamation, the heaviness lifted, joy surging through the Jacobs family as they stood hand in hand, feeling the warmth of existence. They had made it through a trial by darkness, and together, they would carry on. Looking back toward the Catskills Mountains, Emma took a deep breath. Shadows might linger at the periphery, but love and unity were brighter than any darkness. They would rebuild, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They turned away from the haunting woods, a new path ahead illuminated by hope. And now, if you reached this far, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will draw you in like shadows in the night. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. Let your voice be heard. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the power of community. Let us keep the light shining together.